So during my talks, I talk about 5 components of extraordinary teams, and it's really the intangibles, the soft stuff, right?
Hmm.
You know, not the things you can measure, right? It's not your 40 speed or your bench press. It's the other stuff. And so my talk is called 5 components of extraordinary teams, the 5 C's. And I talk about being a competitor. But at the core of that competitiveness, I talk about passion. That if
Yep.
passion isn't driving you, if you're not willing to fight for what you want, when things come up, you'll quit. You'll look for a detour. You'll look for a shortcut. So,
Right.
so that's the context, the framework of what I'm trying to get at. Um, in your role, back as a recruiting coordinator, I remember having this conversation about looking for players, for athletes that have a little dog in them,
Hmm.
right? And
Yep.
yeah, just wanted to open flow conversation, like what where'd that come from? Why was that so important? How did you measure that? So again, open conversation. Keep
Most
not
definitely. So I think,
no rules here. Just wanted to hear your
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, yeah. So like when I think about when I frame it that way of looking at a guy that has like a dog to him, I think people frame that in football as like boastful or being ultra aggressive and super tough. And like, I mean, you can fake those things. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you can see right through that. But like when people do have a level of dog, it's like an unwavering confidence. Like, so it looks different ways, right? But I feel like it checks 4 or 5 different boxes. It's like, oh, like unwavering confidence. Because like there's certain things when you have a dog that like goes into it, whether it's asking for help from somebody, like obsession for growth. You know what I mean? Like there's bad traits where it's like personalization, right? Like where they treat everything personal. Like I gotta be the best, I gotta do this. And like there's like those traits that like stick out. And then there's a level of resiliency. Because like in any sport, you have to be able to recover from getting knocked down, from not doing as good as you are. But I think like those 4 or 5 things is like kind of make up like guys that have a dog. So I'll use 2 different players as an example that I felt like had dog, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to think of somebody who didn't. But like I'm saying, Micah Parsons and Pat Frymouth, completely different guys, different levels of the spectrum. Micah's a little bit more boastful, a little more out there. And I mean, sometimes people would say like, oh, what makes him a dog? But like if you spend time with him or you know his background, like there's like there's resiliency, right? Like there's a resiliency about like how he carries himself, whether it's dealing with the pressure of being recruited, whether it's different home situations that people come through, like growing up in Harrisburg, right? There's a level sometimes that people get these things that make up the environment to harness like quote unquote dog mentality, right? Then it's like the obsession for growth. Have you ever been around like Micah or Pat? Like they were the people that were always, when you're recruiting guys, you're always selling to them, right? You're always like, this is what we offer, this is what we offer, this is what you can do. But like the ones that really have that itch, like they want to know, what can you do for me? Like their obsession for growth, like, and like there's an aspect of having unwavering confidence that asks that of people, right? And you can't be so shy that you're afraid to ask like the hard questions, like of people who have the answers. And that was something that Micah and Pat would do. It was like, I might be on a recruiting visit, but what's this like? What's that like? And it's like always seeing people like this is just a step in the
Yeah,
process. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then there's like a personalization thing to it where it's like, it's not always good outside of sports, but it's like outside of sports, it's like treating the business like yourself, right? Like sometimes you see territory managers where it's like, yo, like, I take this personal. This is mine. You know what I mean? And the same thing with like a Micah or like a Pat. Like they both took things personal. Like I am going to be the best. And if you compare somebody to me, like I take that personal. That's not really the most healthy way to do things outside of sports. But when you're looking for like that level of dog or just being in NFL locker rooms, like those are like the 4 things that
yeah,
kind of line up. And then one of those things missing, like the chink and chain through like the way life goes, like no resiliency, like you'll crumble, right? If you don't have an obsession for growth, you'll be stagnant. And before you know it, you'll just keep losing. And like a dog it can't really operate in that. You know what I mean? Then you got personalization. If you don't really take stuff personal, like you get beat all the time. Like it's like, oh, it's okay, it's all good. Like, no, you take shit personal. Like I fucked up. Like I took that personal. Like there's like a level of accountability that comes with it. And then like the unwavering confidence to whether like tap in to people who have answers that you don't have, and like the confidence to like be bold in like what you do. Like it takes confidence to work extra hard to like get to a goal. People like always post videos and things like that, but like there's no guarantee that you do extra work that you're going to be good. Like it takes confidence to know like I'm gonna do this to get to point C. You know what I mean? So I think those I used to look for those like soft skills in like athletes, because like it shines bright, man. You can and it like ventures, it like splits the guys off that just love the recruiting attention, right? Or just
I hear you. I want to throw another name at you, and if the name doesn't work, then we can clip this out. But there's somebody I was impressed with, and I would have loved to hear how the recruiting process went with him. May have been before your time. Trace McSorley. Trace McSorley.
Yeah, Trace was recruited before me. But he still had those same qualities. And it's not, again, you got a quiet dude. He's unassuming when you walk in, but like his resiliency, like whether you observe from injuries that he faced, being down in games and like how he stayed there, like obsession for growth, like where he's just always looking to get better, right? Like he wasn't a natural quarterback, but he maximized where he was. Like he took things personal. Like it was up to him, you know, like when everything went down Penn State, I was working back to where it was. He took it personal. Like he like personalized like the program to like be his, you know what I mean? Him and Saquon. And like he continued to push forward. And he did have unwavering confidence in like how he carried himself and how he did things. And it showed. Like he would be like I think an optimum like example of that. You know what I'm saying? And but yeah, like I noticed that it took 6 months to notice like, okay, he's got something special.
Yeah. And I tease Trace. You know, I say, man, you don't look like a NFL quarterback. You look like a skateboarder.
Right.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
And which leads me kind of to the next question. You started answering it. When people are looking for, when you're trying to build your team, whether it's a sports team, whether it's a corporate team, I mean, let's be honest, whether it's a family, right? Like when you're looking for people to be with you on your team, you want some people who have that fight, that passion, that dog.
That's probably the last trait that I met. I'm sorry, but that's probably the last trait I missed off in the whole thing, like competitiveness, like competitive nature. Like that's a given when you think about a dog, but like that is the fifth trait. That is like that whole little mustard gumbo.
Okay, let's do this. Let's say you were building, as you were building a corporate team. Right. And so I think the mistake some people make is they're looking for this image. They're looking for this, you know, that growling, that boastful, that loud person, which is why, you know, between Micah, Pat, and Trace, you've got a few dudes along that whole spectrum of demeanors.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find out? What kind of probing do you do to find out whether that drive is there when it doesn't look to be there, when it's not obvious?
I mean, I think proof. I mean, sometimes examples like are always like the best thing to find it. Like if you're interviewing somebody, you ask them about like times of resiliency, times of where they had to go outside of the box to like grow on their own, where it wasn't given to them. Like how do they take failure? Do they take it personal? Like how do they recover from things? Like you can get a sense of confidence from people just on how they operated in those different type of situations. And I think competitiveness, I mean, it's hard to fake it. Like it's hard to fake it. So like I feel like even when I was doing sales, like I remember a guy, my guy Brady, he was like one of the first guys that like in that world, I was like, oh, that's like a dog in corporate that I can relate to. You know what I mean? Because there was other guys where you got the type A personalities, whereas, you know, I'm going to cover up my lack of confidence with just going so hard here and being like an ass kisser and like, but if anything goes wrong, I'm shit, if like I don't really want to get better, I'm just trying to check the boxes. I don't really have confidence, but I take everything personal. But I'm just super competitive out of the insecure space, right? Like you see people get successful, you see people do stuff like that. But I mean, I'm at my man Brady. He's like he's he's like a consultant now that works with different hospitals and things like that. But man, he was like, I don't work for ATI. Like I am ATI. Like when I go into a place, like I'm not, here is my business card, I work for ATI. It's like, no, I'm Brady. Like, so it's like that confidence that you saw. He took stuff personal. Like he operated the business like it was his, but not in a way where it was like ass kissing, like I'm putting on for my boss type thing. It was like, I'm doing this because like I'm walking in here, like these are my relationships, whether I work here or not. So like that level of perspective or like the growth, even when I started, was just like little things that were like, oh, you've been doing this to where like you care about, you don't give them the business card till the end. You know what I mean? Like you make your stuff, and then you slide it like that and never put it to the card. Like you do it natural, like you're a person, you know what I mean? And then like resiliency, like in sales, you take no, but like you have to either muster up fake confidence or you have to be resilient to go in there with a level of confidence and that stuff. So like he had like, that was like the first sales like image of like the dog that I saw like that, where it was like translated into like corporate America.
I'm curious, was he an athlete, a former athlete?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, basketball player.
Exactly, makes sense.
Yeah, basketball player.
So tell me if this makes sense. So during my talks, I talk about passion is what drives us to action, right? Like if you don't care, if you don't take things personally, if it doesn't matter to you, you're never going to take the necessary action. Right. So if I'm reversing it or reverse engineering the process, when I'm asking people who I want to be on my team, do you have any dog in you? What I'm asking, the questions I ask are, tell me about a time, give me an example when things went poorly. And here's the response I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't want you to tell me how you felt. I want you to tell me what you did. Right? Because if all you do is tell me how you felt, you're just emotional. But if you tell me, okay, this pissed me off, this upset me, this hurt my feelings, but here's what I did, whether you growl or not, that's the, like, you could be a 4'7", petite little, little young lady with unassuming demeanor, but if you're taking action, that's what I'm
right. Right. Like, I mean, there's somebody else I'm trying to think of, like you are describing somebody that I just worked with at the XFL. Like she never worked in, football before, but now here she is, she's a Asian girl, 5'1", and she like is ahead of all the DFOs, right? She's talking down to DFOs that have been doing this for 20 years, working for Bob Stoops, working for these head coaches, and she's like just now coming into it. She has an operations background, but you saw that she kind of fit in to, like, she took her shit personal. She was like tough as nails, you know what I mean? She grew up in New York City, smart, went to Michigan, worked at Pepsi before in supply chain and all that stuff. But she had an obsession for growth. Like she wanted to like grow. Like she took pride in everything. She was confident in how smart she was, and she was competitive as hell. So like, and what you're saying, like she was emotional because like there was sometimes where stuff would get so crazy. Like when we started football league, so it got to the point like sometimes she would like cry in front of me and like and make the call to UPS, cuss them out, and be like, I could cry, I could still get my shit done. And I had like a lot of respect for, like, she's never been in like these hyper, but the way she put it together was like, oh, that's a dog that can be harnessed. Like you're just new to this environment of like this, but like you have all the makings to be great at this. You know what I mean? Like, so that's another example. I mean, again, she was a rower at Michigan. Like,
there we go.
So yeah,
we're gonna find the trend.
Yeah.
and after 15 years of recruiting, it was athletes, former athletes, and former military people. The same mindset. Like the job has to get done despite how you feel. And that has become my definition of mental toughness. So the definition is mental toughness is your ability to do your job despite how you feel. Because the reality is there's going to be days where you just there's going to be moments when you just don't feel like it. But can you
Yep.
make the call? Can you, like, you know,
Yeah.
the game we played, like, okay, and it's not just game day, it's Tuesday practice. When you're tired, sore, you just got out of class, and, you know, we're banging. Like, I don't feel
Right.
like doing this right now. It's cold, it's wet.
Right.
I'm in the
Right.
middle of Pennsylvania.
But that's where I try to pull on those other levers, because like when that feels that way, like that's where like you should pull like the other lever. Because like, you know, we all been in camp where like the obsession for growth. Like I remember talking to my man just recently, like my guy that I worked there at the XFL, and he was talking to me. You know, he went to Stanford, like he played with Andrew Luck, like he's had experience. Like he's like, man, but did you love football? Like did you like it? I'm like, yeah, like I had to, like I enjoyed practice. Like I enjoyed covering people. Like even when it was terrible, I didn't want to do nothing. There was an obsession of growth like that I had. And I can even identify in my career where like I lost that obsession for growth, to be honest with you. Like, and it shifted to like, okay, I gotta figure out how to stay healthy. And like the growth piece wasn't, and like that shifted it shifts your whole mentality. You know what I mean? Like
I hear you.
It's your confidence. It shifts your, you know, your competitiveness. It shifts your it shifts everything. You know what I mean? So just, I feel like it really is like a Jenga table to like keeping that thing operating smoothly. So
I love it. I love
yeah.
it. You mentioned that fake confidence, right? Like that facade of confidence,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of people think that they can pretend to have confidence, but it's not really there, right? They're putting on the face. They're kind of beating their chest. How do you peel back that onion, so to speak?
Like the
So
deciphering of
so
it too.
because, all right, so let's go back to your former role, right? You're a recruiting coordinator at a Division I Big Ten program. The only people we're looking at are people who are on certain levels of the radar physically, right? They all have that. In today's world, recruiting is completely transparent, meaning these kids are well recognized and well known at 15, 16 years old. So there's this air that they may feel they've got to put on, right?
Yeah.
So we need to figure out if this image is real, like if you got it or you don't.
Right.
How do you go about kind of peeling that back to see, okay, what's really there?
I think I think like the whole evaluation process, right? I think it's half science, half art. You know what I mean? I think I've been blessed to have been exposed to ultra like confident people my whole life, whether it's like my pops, whether it's playing for Joe Paterno, like whether it's being around coaches my whole life, whether being in an NFL locker room for 6 years. Like, you know, I know what real confidence looks like. So it's very easy just naturally for me to point out when like someone's not really confident or trying to fill up a box.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Here, and
you fake it. You can tell.
yeah, like I've been like, so like that's the gift. So like the science of it though, like I mean, like anything, I'm real big on, you know, when I was at ATI doing sales and stuff, like they gave us like top notch training from like Apple, Disney, and all that stuff. But like probing questions, you know what I mean? Like it was always like a big thing with me, because I think like one, competitive guys and guys that have that like aspect, that dog or whatever, like that true confidence, like you can like pinpoint things like, oh, what are you working on? Like, what do you want to do? Or what would happen with this? Or you can sell like little stupid stuff. It's just like street con. I try to understand, like, are you confident like out on the street? Like, or are you just confident in sports, right? Because there's some guys that are confident like within the confines of a football field, but you like put them and drop them in somewhere like they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on, right? And vice versa, where there's guys that are like confident, you know, like outside in the streets and like insecure and unsure in the field. So like, I think I've had a good exposure to kind of like out there and on the field. So like asking probing questions about, you know, like what are they working on right now? Or just like trying to dig through these dog pieces. Like it's like almost like a big equation where I feel like if one's lacking, like I'll start to like pick at the confidence, right? Like, and you see again, you see, like when these guys are on visits and when they're coming next to each other, like confidence, it just moves differently. Like it moves like an unwavering thing, like where you can like act a little different, give them a little less, like attention. Like somebody like Micah, right? Micah. I thought really like his whole even recruiting thing started to shift when we stopped kissing his ass, and it was like, yo, what the F is this? Da da da. Like he respected that. And like I respected that, he respected that. Cause like anybody that wants to be better wants to know, like, yeah, I need to be someone that's going to push me. I need to want somebody that is going to be stand up to me. Cause like people would talk about, you know, Alabama, and like we had parents and kids come in like, oh man, Alabama was so sterile. They only talk about football. I'm like, well, I don't want you either. Like, as if that's not enticing to you, like, then it's like catching fish. It's like if you're just trying to catch catfish, you're throwing a certain bait. So,
Hey, Justin,
like,
the internet. I hate to
we got to make sure when it.
Can you hear me?
I got you now.
Yeah, whatever you were saying was important. Like after it kind of got fuzzy when you're talking about, you know, when you come here, I want it to be the same way. Do you remember what you said?
When you come here, I want it to be the same.
You said they go to Alabama and it was so sterile, but then they come here.
Okay, so that was me. Okay, so talking about like that was uncovering not like the fault of like the athlete. Well, it's like, one, I'm recognizing that you might have a competitive deficiency, but something about that environment is not conducive to you. Like that's a championship environment, like that's sterile. They're here for business. So like right there, I'm like, okay, you're not approaching this like a business. You might want warm, fluffy. You might want those. So like that triggers my thing off. And again, my background of being around a lot of different players, you can be successful as like a Dabo Sweeney, like at Clemson, or you can be successful there. But like those dog mentalities, like they cross function, right? And like there was an aspect of lack of attention or just like not getting treated the right way that would rub people wrong. And like you talk to people that went to Bama, like they didn't go to Bama to have a friend. Like they didn't go to Bama to get their ass kissed. Like they went to Bama to get their ass kicked. They went to Bama to be the best player they wanted to be. They went to Bama to get national championships. Like they weren't really in it for that. And that's the one thing that Bama, like from the top down, from Nick Saban, or CEO of a company, you create your values and the structure of your system. And I feel like it's important to cast the net for the type of fish that you want. Like I don't want no disrespect, but like I don't want Marcus Allen right here, because it's like if you don't like this type of thing, then this isn't for you, and we're not going to change because of you. Like you have to get to that stature for those things to like match up. And I think at Penn State, it started to shift when I was there, when it was like we're coming out of sanctions and we got to bend over backwards to get guys that come here. And then it was like, no, we need to make a standard so we're getting like the guys that fit what you need, not just like talent here, this, he got a little bit of this, he got a little bit of that. No, it needs to all fit from the top down.
And there's 20 people in the country that do fit, right? We don't need everybody.
We don't need everybody.
That's what I remember from Coach Paterno. It's I'm not looking for everybody. I'm looking for a great student who's smart, who's tough. So if they had the same scales back then,
mm-hmm.
I'll take a 3-star. I'll take a 3-star based on their physical aspects, but I need 5-star in terms of their mental, emotional. Right?
Absolutely. They mastered that. You know, they did that with. I mean, Penn State was the key at. I mean, developing talent. You look at the NFL rosters. Like, there's certain franchises that you can tell from the top down the type of players that they get and how they get around it. Like, doesn't change regardless of the coach. The Steelers, the Ravens, the Giants have gotten away from it a little bit, but like the Green Bay Packers, like there's certain. Like the San Francisco 49ers are getting back to it, but like there's a mentality that's like a common thread amongst those. And like when you find those organizations that have the most common threads from top to the bottom, it works. Like I had a call with the recruiting department this morning at Penn State, like a professional development thing. We were talking about my time at the XFL, and there was like one of the major takeaways, like being at the league office there, I had an opportunity to look at 8 different football organizations, right? I was with them from they hired the head coach to see like what they were trying to do scheme wise, how their person like philosophical approach was going to be, how their coaches were going to be. Like I was able to see the whole thing come to fruition. And the one big takeaway was like, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
It just has to be congruent from the top. Like you cannot be a hard-nosed coach and get soft players and like want to run a smash mouth game. Like they just have to go together. The coaches have to coach a hard-nosed style of play. You have to get big nasty guys. Like that's where
I love it. Congruence.
That's where it has to be congruent. Like that's like, but there's no one way to do it.
Yeah, so it's funny. I reached out to Coach Franklin the other day because I was doing had another of these conversations, and something came up where I said, because of the adversity, I made the statement that people don't need a belief system. They don't need core values until they need a belief system.
So they need the belief system. That's where they need to start.
Yeah, it's like a life jacket, right? You don't need a life jacket until you need a life jacket.
Right.
And so his whole the fact that his core values are posted up on the wall, like I can see him making an effort to, okay, here's what we believe as an organization. I need a coaching staff that reflects that. I need players that reflect that. I need support staff that reflects that, because there's got to be congruence,
Yeah,
Which
like,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, but like even, I mean, not to critique, because I would even think like his core values, they lend well to they do lend well to a good functioning organization. Now, internal staff wise, like I don't know if there's a value system and like what's on the field. Like I need my linebackers to be type A this, I need to be this tall this, I need this to be that, I need that to be this, I need the coaches to coach like this, I need this to operate like that, I need, regardless if you leave as this coach, I need the receivers to look like this. These are the traits that we're looking for, because like, and that's just me and my personnel brain, but like when you look at like Ohio State, like they get new coaches every year, but for some reason, man, these guys, like there's a formula. Like these guys look the same when we go through pregame. It's like, oh, they got a type, right? Like I mean, we're starting to get it. You got Saquon, you got Miles, you got, and we're coming back from a little stuff and all that good things. But like that is the piece, right? Like I feel like that there's been more congruence from when I first got to Penn State to where it's at now. Like I feel like regardless of the level of player, like there's congruence in like the players and like how the thing is structured, right? Like it seems that way. It's like,
I hear you. So last question. So leaders are trying to build a culture. This question may have a couple different levels here. And so I was having a conversation with my wife the other day, and we were talking about this whole passion dog thing. And I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked her. Does passion, or that thing, that dogness, is that in you or not? Or is it something that can be developed, right? Do you either have it or you don't? Or is it something that you can grow into, or at a certain point in time, like that switch may flip on?
I think the hardest part, I think everyone has it in a specific area. Okay. I think if you don't experience it, it's hard to tap into, right? Like a lot of times athletes get to tap into it and experience it through things that are like right in your face. But like a lot of times people aren't afforded those opportunities until later in life. So like, yeah, you can develop it, but like it may be in a different realm and not be beneficial like in your prime working years, to be completely honest with you. But I do feel like it can be developed in different areas if you learn how to tap into it. So I think the biggest hurdle is tapping into it, period, or learning what that, like kind of what you're obsessed about. Like there is an aspect, you look at like a Kobe Bryant, like I think when you talk about like people that leave things out of him, like, yeah, he worked hard and all that stuff, but like the obsession for growth, like him calling like Anna Windsor, him calling Michael Jordan, him calling like people from all outside to understand like what is it to be great, right? Like what is it to that thing? Like he figured out like, okay, I tapped into this dog aspect, I'm not gonna apply this everywhere. But I think if you don't have that experience of tapping into it in the beginning, it's kind of hard because like that's been my compass in trying to tap into it outside of sports, where it's like, all right, what did I do here? Like, oh, I would study this, and then I would reach out regardless, and then I would, even if I don't like it, or be confident, like humble yourself in this. That's something you don't know. You gotta, like, I was good with asking something if I know on the opposite end I'm going to be better. You know what I mean? That's like that unwavering confidence or resiliency in that aspect. So I
Interesting.
think the hardest part is finding it for the first time. But once you found it, I think you can learn how to tap into it.
Okay, that's interesting because I really encourage, especially young people, to expose themselves to as many different things as possible. Right?
That's
Even in college,
Yep.
like I would go and sit in classes that I wasn't enrolled in, right? Because like I just found learning interesting, right? Man, they got a whole
Inquisitive. That goes with
they have a
accelerative growth.
yeah, like yeah, they have a whole degree on horticulture and how to plant trees and
Yeah,
beans. Like I'm not interested in that, but I just found it fascinating that you can create a whole curriculum and a whole degree on that thing. And while I might not like it, let me just see what they're talking about. Different types of
absolutely.
music, different types of food, just exposing yourself to different things to see, man, that might be the thing. That
Right.
might be the thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I lied. One more
And
question.
just to go into what you're saying, like trying those different things, almost like trusting yourself when you feel that thing that, like, that's when you press the gas and go like, oh, here is the thing where I can implement that
Yeah,
dog mentality, whatever it's resilience, obsession, like loving, passion, and confidence, all that stuff. Because to be honest with you, that's a lot of investment, like emotional investment for something that's not worth it. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, you know,
So you've been in this position. You've seen a lot of people in this position. Let me tell you the position. I've I've gone full speed playing the sport that I love because I loved it. I was passionate. It drove me, and then it ends.
right.
And now I'm stuck in this big world, and nobody's cheering for me. I'm lost. I have no idea how to transition from this thing that was huge and was a huge part of my life into this black hole, so to speak. Um,
Yeah.
how do you make that transition? Any advice to young people who are kind of stuck there, right? All the recent college grads who aren't playing at the next level, who just don't know what's next for
I think that's a natural it's a natural transition, and it's a hard transition for anybody that
them.
goes through it. I would consider myself and like even some of my teammates from Penn State being well equipped to like rebound from transitioning out of the game, and us looking back to Penn State and those building blocks that we did have, right? Whether it was going to breakfast every day, whether it was like being 10 minutes early, just like implementing like the basics of what I learned as a freshman at Penn State gave me like a level of structure to present myself in a way to where it was like, okay, I can transition out of sports, right? Like, because I saw it was hard for me to transition out of sports and like, get denied for different gigs or whatever the case may be, or your identity's wrapped up in sports. So you gotta like try to understand who you are,
Yeah,
like where your value is, like self-love, that whole aspect.
yeah,
And then it's just a matter of like building on those building blocks and like kind of seeing where you want to go and like implement the things that you learned. And like that's where kind of brought me back, like me going through that situation kind of what wanted me to get back to Penn State or in that role, because like when I was going through the wilderness of transition out of football, like I kind of reverted back to Penn State. Like that was my survival. That was like my real life survival instincts. Like to
yeah,
be honest with you, like my
yeah,
real life survival instincts weren't in the NFL because like that's not real life. Like you know what I mean? Like the stuff that like the way I could get out of problems there, like I just
yeah,
that's a different story.
yeah,
But you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that's just not that's not sustainable.
Right, right,
Like in
right.
order to be like a functioning adult in society, I have to go back to these building blocks of what I had at Penn State. So I'm saying I have to say when I went back to Penn State, I feel like that is uh, a college athletics, like they owe that to their student athletes to give them those building blocks to be successful outside of the sport, like learning like what talents they do have, like this whole dog thing, like that no one else has. Like when I realized when I got into corporate America, like, oh, I'm saying like no one has this. Like you guys can't even operate if anything goes bad. Like you start seeing in those 2 years that I did sales, I started seeing where my quote unquote dog or my like superpower kind of shined through there. But it took a year of like figuring myself out to do it. And you have to kind of just like what you said, you have to jump into things, man. Like I think the transition, you have to try shit and jump into it. Because a lot of times when you're coming out of football, you're leaving at the top of something. Whether you leave at Penn State, you go to NFL, like I'm used to being the top 3%, top 2% at this. And then all of a sudden you're going into a place where people are looking at you like, oh, you only went to college because you were an athlete. You're just a football player. You don't know shit about medicine. You don't know about budgets and this. You don't know how to do it. And you have to like show them. And a lot of that stuff I had to revert back to like my Penn State days and slowly got better. And I only noticed because I talked to my other friends, like Waddell Sargent. Like we went through it at the same time. Like, oh, you're an agent. Oh, I'm dealing with this. I'm talking to this dude who don't know shit. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, all right, we got to keep doing. We got to go back to this. And you just kind of stack the blocks, you know? And then like before you know it, that little bit of experience that you have as an athlete, like all the things that you learn, this dog mentality, all those things come to fruition once you kind of show a little bit of work experience or you just get adjusted to real life. Like that would be my suggestion, is like trying to get there before it's over. But like you said, expose yourself to see where like that fire inside lights up again. Like that's the best way.
That's great advice. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I really appreciate your time and your thoughts, your perspective. It's always nice to hear. It's interesting. Like it's interesting to hear common ideas, but still from a different perspective. And I think that's just the beauty of just having.
Truth is truth, right?
Yeah, it doesn't change. It doesn't change, but it's nice to hear it from different angles and different perspectives, because there's no shortcuts, man. Like there's just certain things that just happen.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. And the faster you run into it, the faster you get on the side.
Exactly. Listen, brother, I appreciate your time. Stay healthy, stay safe, take care of your family.
No doubt, man. I appreciate it.
And as I mentioned, if there's anything I can do to help, just holler.